Sup Shredders, my name is Logan aka Spiderhands and welcome to an SP Reviews where today we have ourselves a track by an act named Fred Vanterra titled Waikiki Bit. And if we switch over to here we have ourselves this track on Spotify. It is from Fred Vanterra's album Waikiki Synth. So we're going to listen through this track from start till finish and we're going to hear what we think. Let's go, what do we got? Yeah, okay, so careful development. So it's kind of chiptune, isn't it? I'm loving that noisy kind of fuzziness there of those percussive layers. Great change of section here, great change of pace. A little more oomph to it in the mid-range. So I mean obviously this is an instrumental so far. I don't think there's going to be any filler or any moments where we necessarily calm down and like let there be silence. But that's okay because the individual elements within the accompaniment so far are engaging. Lots of different sort of synthy textures despite the 16-bit variations and it's cool. Great use of a riser there. Oh! Great job bringing it down. At that halfway point. Makes a lot of sense. I'm going to comment on something, and I don't want this to be taken the wrong way. I kind of appreciate how we haven't quantized the melodies to be totally snug with the drum parts, because there's a little bit of delay between some of these elements here. We're kind of anticipating the synth leads. They're coming like we're sort of like we're rushing some of the percussive elements here, but I don't mind it because it seems like a more organic performance. Because of that, it seems less kind of made in a lab, if that makes sense. It's a bit playful. Could just be like a ping pong or a slide back delay or something like that, I suppose. And just things kind of go out and resolve to a major tone. I like the vibe, the personality of it is charming. And the bell curve, going back down. Really sweet portamento on that bass element to the low end. Okay, that was a really charming finish. I'm stoked with that. So this is my conclusion of my review of this track, Waikiki Bit, from the Waikiki Synth album from Fred Vanterra. What do I think this track is about? I mean, as an instrumental, there's not a story to it per se, because there's no lyricist or singer to tell it. or whatever. But basically, what I'm trying to communicate is, I think this is just an attempt at getting the Waikiki with the with the chiptune stuff. It's potentially, because I can see like lots of different tracks here, like Waikiki Beach, 2, Gemini, Seared Europe. So I suppose this is like a specific style that Fred wants to go to, and he's expanding across different genres, across different sort of inspirations, etc. I think it's a beautiful thing to do. It's great to have a kind of a concept and see how many times you can remix it to suit the needs of various stuff across an album. It's also a synth album, so no wonder it's an instrumental if the synth is the main sort of lead voice here. And I think that there's a general charm and playfulness across this, with a little bit of kind of sort of ferocity with some of those mid-range sort of fuzzy synth elements there that kind of inferred a little bit more sort of like we're kind of pumping ourselves up for something, but then we kind of bring it down to kind of be, oh no, we're chill, everything's playful, etc. And I think that we're definitely going on some sort of journey here. I think the beauty of an instrumental is that you can imagine it as a listener and make it your own sort of like awareness of what you want from it. I think it's someone going on missions, doing some sort of like battle stuff, and because I think Fred Vanterra works with video game companies, if I'm not mistaken. Does some stuff doing like video game soundtracks. I could be wrong. Let me know if I'm incorrect, and I'll obviously have to rescind that. But I think this music could work great with video game soundtracks. It makes a lot of sense, and it's cool. Yeah, but like basically, just before I go into the rest of it, I think it's about like you going on battles and going on journeys, and then like having a boss battle, and then like bam, back down to like collecting the loot, and then having a bit of a chill sort of relax before the next escapade. That's my take on it. Outside of the vocals, which weren't present because it was instrumental, the track is 3.5 minutes long, which I think is a great length for it, between that 2 to 4 minute sweet spot. We really did not feel the need, I think, to extend it beyond its use by date. And what I mean by that is you had a couple of different sections and different themes there, with a lovely resolution to a new one in that outro section where we went to like a major tone to kind of have a really sweet ending to it. And I think they're going between the highs and lows. They're having sort of peppy, energetic, kind of majorish kind of like element there, with some like kind of blinky staccato synths there, the bass and the really present drums in there that didn't overstay the welcome. But like there was just lots of fun stuff going on with those tones. But then of course you had the risers and more kind of mid-range, kind of like bow, 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 bow. And like I can remember those melodies and those harmonies very, very clearly. And that's important because, especially with instrumental, you need to remember the music after you listen to it. Otherwise, what's the point, right? It needs to be memorable. And this was. I think there was enough variety within the various instrumental parts to be able to keep people interested and engaged. I think the use of rises to illustrate a mix to a next section was good because it was either an anti-drop or it was a drop where we had a bit more sort of on-4. Like in the last part, we had a riser, but it went into the majorist tone there, got rid of a lot of the reverby elements there, and had more sort of like short notes that made it sound more distinct. And I think that overall it was an interesting track to listen to from an arrangement and compositional perspective. And it's a good first impression, Theme overall, as I described, was kind of the same as I was talking about what I think the track was about. So yeah, no complaints there on my end. I think it was cognizant, and you just got to use your imagination, and there's nothing wrong with that. But basically, the studio recording, mixing, and mastering, I was mostly happy with it. I think that the individual elements were leveled well. We had a slow kind of build into like the full stereo field being utilized with stuff in the center and then the left and the right. That's a good development technique there from a compositional perspective. Because you don't get everything at once. And if the listener is patient, they'll definitely have the time for that. We didn't hang around too long with just one thing though, which is great. I think that if we'd had waited, longer, to include a different element like on the left and on the right, it would have been too long for most listeners because the attention span these days. But in general, like the development came in a way that was predictable, but also you didn't know what was going to come next, I suppose, unless you were more familiar potentially with Fred Vanterra's style. So it's well done, it's well handled, and I think that in general, the leveling of the various instruments in the mix was good. There was no resonant frequencies in the stereo field and the frequency spectrum, which is great, especially when you have lots of the same type of instrument, like especially with the chiptune synths with like pads and leads and stabs and stuff like that. We didn't have anything kind of knocking against one another and making things awkward. It was nice and wide in the stereo field when everything came in. The leveling in general was good. There might have been some points where like something was slightly louder than the other, but I didn't mind it too much. There was a sense of humanity to the performance there without having things totally compressed and all row in the same loudness the entire time. So the dynamic range was welcome and appreciated. Just before I continue, I think I mentioned this in the listening section, but just with the way the instruments were played, just in case I hadn't made it clear enough, I don't have an issue that everything wasn't in time all the time. I think that in studio production you can quantize stuff and kill the mood of it. As I understand it, Fred has studied the piano since he was very young, so I'm not surprised that we're having synth focuses within this track, and it's great. It's really well done. And I think that you do enough piano and you get to a point where you don't want it to be perfect, if that makes sense, and it often makes it more interesting when it's not. So it's just clever stuff, and I think finally it's nice to know without pumping, and this is my review of Waikiki Bit, a track off of the Waikiki synth album from Fred Vanterra. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, please do check out the various social medias and their Spotify page, and stay cool and stay safe, and please remember to support your local musicians and artists at this point in time. It's need the help more than ever with all the great stuff going on in the world, and I'll catch you in the next review. Spiderhands out.